Okay, we're getting closer to the point where we can do combat. I'm going to need some data structures to work with for combat, and so now we're going to integrate a bunch of things that we've had there already. We need a player data structure. We're going to need data structures for our NPCs. We're going to need to have out there someplace. So just to get those designed and in here is going to be a little bit of work. And we already have the dialog box, or part of it, that's going to be used to input the player information. We need to finish that off. And at the same time, I want to introduce the idea of scene transitions, because we want to make scene transitions between different phases to go in and create the character information, and then go in and play in the original scene here. So let's work on doing that right now. I want to start, I think, by I think I want to actually create a title slide here and put that in. That'll be kind of fun because that will show how the startup is going to go, and then also show that we'll need some sort of a menu scene to transition into, because it by default will transition into this island right here, which isn't what I want. But I thought this would be kind of fun here. And if I go into project settings and under player, we'll see the Unity player stuff here. We can set up some stuff. I'm going to call this Skull Island. And the name it really came just because I was looking for some sort of a cool image and stuff to do with that, and it came across something that sort of interested me. So let's see, I don't have it installed out here. Let me go get that for us here. Let me pause this and I'll put it in the project. Okay, I put two images down here. They've gone to the import image right here, but I don't want to go there right now. That happened when I dropped the images in there. If I go to project settings, player again, we'll see that we have a application config dialog banner, and that would be a texture. And so I'm going to come down here to my Skull Island stuff, and we see the logo here. This is what I want. This isn't really the logo. That's the config dialog banner. And then for the logo, this is going to be this has to be a sprite. So that's the title screen here. I'm going to change that to a sprite and apply that, and go back to this. Come on, mouse, move over. Project settings, player, and I will put it as one of the logos here. And that will be the Skull Island title screen. I'm going to up the duration for the logo to 4.5 seconds should be fine. And at this point, let's just go and do a build and run. So we'll go ahead and select that for the Project 19 RPG19 screen. It's not putting anything up here yet. Now we're getting the building player. So it's just kind of baking all this stuff and putting it all together in one player package. And yeah, I think I'll just pause it until it's finished with its thing. Okay, and after the result of the run here, we get to the configuration for the player here, where we can set the screen resolution here. I want to put it over on this screen here. And this is our Skull Island picture, and then we'll hit play, and we see the logo here being zoomed in here. And then it transitions in here. Okay, so and it's running full screen here, so it's chopping a little bit of this off, but this is the game view that we had. Now there's no way to exit this right now, unfortunately. So we'll have to exit it by killing the thread, and so I'll just close the window behind me. And this also brings up another thing here. It was hard to spot it with the Unity logo down there in the window. So I'll go back to player, and I will find the default icon, and I will select it, and I picked this cross axis earlier. That works. I don't care what it is, just as long as it shows up as something besides the Unity logo down there on the screen, so I can spot that. Makes me wonder if I might want to have this Skull Island picture for the configuration as well. So I'll do another build and run. I don't think this will take as long, but I'll pause it here until we're ready. And we're back, and I have no idea why it's not using the icon that it's supposed to. It is still putting up the Unity, but it is a blue Unity now instead of something else. Let's play it windowed, and we'll see how that works. It is chopping off the bottom of the window. No, that's not what I want you to do. So I can't really resize it here very easily. Oh, there we go. I think I managed to get it. No, I haven't. There we go. You can't see it. It's off the screen here, but and I do not appear I can resize the player window while it's running. That's kind of silly. You can see the icon up here. Yep, there's no way to resize it. I can just go back, and I can't even go to full screen here. Oh well. Oh, now the icon is switched. That's good. I can close it off there. Which brings up another thing too, is I'm going to want a way to exit the game while we're in here. So this is a good application for our command interpreter. Let's go back to the command interpreter, which is under scripts, and we have command interpreter. And I just have to add one more command to this, and that's something to shut us down. Okay, so I will create a new command here that I'll call quit. I'll just copy onloc again, and I'll put it up above. No, I'll put it up above onloc because I think this might be quit. And so we'll call this on quit. It doesn't have any output, doesn't need to do anything there to it other than call application dot quit. Okay, and that should take care of that. And I'll just need to come up here, add one more command to my list, comma. Visual Studio's indentation is a little bit weird. Quit, and action will be on. Oh no. Quit. Okay, so if I save this, and I don't have to actually go and build the whole package again. I should be able to just run it from here, and we can see what happens if I type quit and nothing happened. That's interesting. That is really interesting. Console have anything to say? No. Let's go back to my command interpreter and see if I forgot something. OnQuit goes to OnQuit, calls application quit. Alright, let's stop this and come back. And the explanation is actually pretty simple there. If had I built and ran it, this would have ran fine. But we're in the editor. If we were to really perform an application quit, that would shut down Unity. So we need to have some particular checks here to see if pound if Unity editor, and if that's the case, I want to say Unity editor dot editor application dot is playing equals false, and else do that. Get that stuff off my screen here. Okay, and then we'll just do a pound end if, and that will selectively exit it based on whether or not we were running in the editor. Let's try this out here real quick. And the game comes up, and we say quit, And we're back in the editor there. Okay, so we just turned off play. But the more important thing is now that we have a way, so we're running the build scene, and I'll just build this and run this really quick and pause the video while it's building. And I've dropped the resolution here inside the configuration, and now it will run in a smaller window just for testing. And notice that the UI scales with window size, and if I type quit, it goes away. Alright, so we've done that. We don't have a way to transition out of this. If we let the title screen finish, it goes right into the game. And that's because under build settings, that's the scene that's in the build. So that will be the default scene we'll transition to. So if I want to change that, I'm going to need to do a few things. And I'll need to have another scene to work. Let's actually create another scene here. Go ahead and save this scene. And we have that. I'm going to save this new one really quickly before I end here as the start menu scene. And in this case, I'll bring up a canvas. So I'll just add a UI canvas to the scene here. That will, of course, be mapped one-to-one onto it. I'll set it to 2D. And the canvas, I'm having trouble seeing it. There's my canvas. Extent will fill the whole window. I will drop an image onto that scene here. UI image. And then I will want that to stretch all the way out here and all the way out here. Furthermore, I want the anchor to stretch both directions. And then I will just load the image. Source image will be my Skull Island title screen. And then I can add to the canvas a button. And let's zoom in here. Let's make the button a little bit bigger. And this button will say, I don't know if I have a button image here that would work in my UI images in Negromancer. There is a button here that was double click on it and see if it comes up here. And it's going to come up in paint.net, so it's not much of a button, I don't think. I think I'll just use the Unity button for right now, but I can maybe change its color to something in the red, and put some black text on it. The button material is just an image, and I think I need to throw maybe some text underneath it. Here's the text, and I will want this to be like new for the game there. Color should be completely opaque black 000, and probably a bigger font than that, so maybe 40, even higher. Okay, there's my new button, and I will just click on the move so that I can move it around, and I will set it over. Why are you? Oh, I don't want to move the text. My bad there. Hit Control Z a couple of times, and this will now move. This thing over here. I want the button to anchor to the right middle, so it'll sit there. And maybe to duplicate this button here, well, later we will do like load and stuff like that. So we have some options here. I don't particularly care for the button sprite image too much. It's being there. I don't know if this touchpad sprite looks a little bit better there. That gives me kind of a circular shape, so I'll keep that. Okay, so this is a scene, and I'll want to have a button handler that will transition us out of this. Maybe I want to dial down this red a little bit, so there, so it sort of matches the Skull Island text there. So it's kind of an orange now. This is going to be my title screen there, and in my program build settings, I can add an open scene, and I think that I think the first scene in the list will be the one that's ran. So I'm going to do a build and run, select folder, and I'll pause this while it builds. Okay, so we're back with this after it builds. I note that the icon in the game will not change until actually it starts playing. So it will have the Unity icon right now, the Unity logo. Now it's switched to the cross axis, and we get this. Good. So in the event that you have multiple scenes, all scenes must be added to the project in order to get built in there, but the first one on the list will be the active scene when we get created, and I have a button that doesn't do anything. Okay, so far so good. I'll just kill that and close that down, and I just need to add some button handler. Now we don't want a scene change to occur when the button is pressed. Maybe what I should do is to first of all identify what scene we're going to want to have here. I'll want to save this scene out, and then open the scene and go and look in our scenes folder. We have the UI test, which was really the scene that was used for the dialog box. So let's go to that scene and bring it up. And so we have this with this in the background. I think what I might want to do for this, since this fills the whole screen, is just to modify this a little bit, and we'll change it from a UI test, save it as the character create. All right, and the only thing I think I'll change here is I'll go into my canvas, and I want to add that image in. I'll just click UI image and put it here, and I want to go to, actually I want to put it above the panel because I think that'll make it behind the panel, which is fine. And then I'm going to stretch it all the way out here to the sides and mark it to stretch with that, and then I can just load into this image, get that anchor out there, I already set it, the title slide again, and now it'll appear as if this is now just popped in front of the title slide. We already have this working pretty well, and we'll get to text changes and all that. I'd like to add in a couple of other things too. In my UI prefabs, let's see if I have a static text labels, all that. Let me drag a label into the scene here, and that doesn't work too well because it drops it off the canvas here. Let's put it on the panel down here at the bottom, and I will go to the label, and now the labels were never made particularly easy to edit because they weren't going to be changed that often, but I want the character's name to be in here. So let me just zoom in here, scroll this up, and take the label itself and scrunch it down a little bit. I really wish this background image did not change, so I'm going to preserve the aspect ratio. Boy, I really only want to preserve the aspect ratio on one side, but here, let me. That isn't working too well. All right, well, this will be good enough. That'll be good enough. I want this name though to be the name of the new character, and then we'll insert a into the panel a UI input field, which will be here. Drag this down, bring it up, and I will also scale it up roughly about the same size. Move it into place. Wait, you're still in. Move it into place. Set my rect transform and drag it out here. I'm going to leave the placeholder this time, but I will go down to the placeholder text and say inner name. Would this be better with the Germanica font? Yeah, that looks good. So now the control is using Germanica for that, and it should use Germanica here as well. So I will switch this over, and I want the input field to use the background that we picked for the input field, which I think was text box. That looks good. And this should be fine. We'll want to capture the, let me just drag this down just a little bit so it's kind of centered roughly with name there. And oh, be sure to anchor both of these to the bottom of the screen. And I want them to be anchored to the bottom left. Okay, so as that changes, then the name will always be down there. When we hit the enter of the enter the name, I guess I don't want to do anything when we hit enter on the name, because they may fill in the name, and I'm trying to drag this over here. All right, there we go. They may hit the enter on the name before they're finished entering other things. Let me take the panel and adjust the panel a little bit, up a little bit, so that the island graphics shows beneath it. Let me also take the island, the panel, and panel, hello, and move it up a little, just a little bit. There we go. Just so you can still see the island graphics behind it. I think I'll add a button to this. I don't know if we actually have buttons in, or good buttons in the Necromancer. The buttons looked pretty lame there, and I'm just using a regular circular button before. Let me see if I can go find myself some graphics or make something that would work a little bit better. I kind of like this background image here, so maybe if I just took this, let me just zoom in here. The button wouldn't have the little stuff right here, but be circular with this same material behind it. And maybe some sort of a little border around it. So let me see what I can do with that. Okay, we'll see how well this works here. I just drew this up in paint.net, and I didn't spend very much time on it, so it's probably going to look awful. But I'll fix it. I need to. UI button. This is going to be my done button, if you will. And I'll put it down here, and I will scale it up to be there. And move it off to the corner, anchor it to the lower right, and go to the image. And instead of using that, I've got another button. I had to, of course, name it button, didn't I? Because this didn't do me any good when they're all named button. And I think the reason it didn't find it was this is probably not a sprite. So let me change it, and let me also rename it to be Necro button, so it fits in with the Necromancer theme barely. And so I'll go back to my button here and apply the import settings, change the sprite to Necro button. And what we get is sort of a turn that off there. Yeah, I don't know. Uh, something sort of loses it off to the side there. But at any rate, it is the button for now. And let me change the text to be first of all font. Are you going to know you have Germanica available? That's good. I want your text to say play, and we will up the color on that. Let me get the color. Color should be pure black. 000 pure alpha. Okay. And the font, maybe the color should be white. That's what the other text was. Okay, 255, 255, 255. And I think the font isn't too bad. I can't really see what's going on with it. Now it's going to need to be bigger. So I will up the font size. And center it at the top. It almost looks like it's saying plan. Text area, no, button, text, play. Okay. Well, that's going to be the thing anyway. So what we will do is I want to disable the button. So this is going to be the play button. I will want it to start off disabled. No, I don't want it to be disabled. I want it to be, how about non-interactable? Ah, there we go. That grays it out there. Non-interactable. And then I will want to turn it on when all the points are spent. So recall doing that is from the attribute pool. Attribute pool is a script here. Which I just okay. Attribute pool, great. So I'm going to want to get one more piece of information out of here then. I want my button, and I don't think I have UnityEngine.ui here, so using UnityEngine.ui to allow me to have buttons. And I will have a private button play button, and that will be play button equals transform dot. I've got find deep child now. I don't have to mess around with this paths anymore, so I can just say play button dot get component, and that will be type button. And at that point, when validation occurs, or when change occurs, if value equals 0, then play button dot, and it's interactive, so interactable equals true, else play button dot interactable equals false, and that will turn the button on and off based on the total points left to spend. Now I just need to wait to set up a handler for the play button, and so I might as well, let's see, do I have a script for my whole panel, the total thing? I don't. I'm going to create a new one here for this. That's going to be the character create, and that will be I guess that will be a UI image, a UI script. I mean, I could put it inside the attribute pool, couldn't I? Does it really have the play button? Yeah, it's not underneath the attribute pool, so it won't find it. How will it find it? I certainly don't want to search at the scene. I could move it underneath there, but I want to find it from up here. Okay, I know how we'll do this. this will work here. It's just going to be a little bit different than finding it here. It won't be transform. It'll be transform dot parent dot transform, and that should be transform. So we'll ask the parent to perform a find deep child. There, that works better. Save those assets. And now I can create one that I will attach to the panel or the canvas. Okay, the canvas is probably a place here. And so we'll make this a script here, and this will be a C# script that will be the character create script. And character create will have it won't have the button, so that they can get the button handler registered. UnityEngine.UI, which means that I can have a private button play button, and we'll find that and start. And I'll say play button equals and transform dot, and I'll use find deep child again because I don't want to. There's no need for me to pretend that I know what the hierarchy is when it could just be anywhere there underneath that. Dot get component button. Okay, so I'm confident that that's going to work. It's going to give it to us. I'm going to need a handler for the button, and so I will want to say play button dot. I think I can say on click, might be on select, on submit. I think that's the on submit's probably what I want to have here. Dot add. Well, let me. No, it won't. Let's take a look at the button and see what it wants to give us. And it's on click. That's what it wants. Dot on click. Dot. This way I can add a listener to it, and the listener will be a. It's going to be a delegate of some sort here. Delegate, and let me fill it in my function here. Void on play click. This could only happen when all the points have been spent. I don't have to worry about that happening any other time. Okay, so that would take care of that. What am I missing here? Probably a close parenthesis for the add listener call. Okay, so I could just say debug.log play clicked, and that will be enough to let us know that this is working here. Okay, I should be able to start this scene right here since this is the current scene. And my play button is indeed grayed out. And if I were to go to the console, which I can't see because I'm full screen, then turn off maximize on play. And we'll just have to work out of this piece right here. 20 points to allocate, and I'm just going to start allocating these things at random. I probably shouldn't turn on the play. Now see, play turned on here once I hit 0. I shouldn't have really turned it on until type of name Fred. Won't matter. I hit play, and it's not happening. I'm not seeing it. All right. Okay, so let me let me poke around at this and see if I can figure out what might be the problem. And I cannot see the problem here. So either I didn't save it out, what it looks like I did. Either the script is not attached to it. That's a good one. Did I actually attach it to anything? Did it get attached to the panel? I don't think I attached my character create to anything. So I better attach that to my, I think that's probably the problem right there. Let me go to the attribute pool, and I see my value is at 20 points, and I'm going to set it to 8 points. Drop that down to a reasonable number, and we are set to clear on play. So even though you can't see everything going on in this small window here, I'm going to just start clicking up until play turns on. I'll be sure to type some text in here even though it doesn't matter. And I'll hit play. And there's my play clicked. Okay, so everything is hooked in there. I probably want to check then before the pool is before the pool turns on that button, see whether there's a name entered here. That's going to be a little bit more of a problem there, because how am I going to know where that is? I could certainly well, let's see. Yeah, I think the best way of doing this is not going to be terribly pretty, but I think I want to notify character create when the pool goes to 0 and let it turn the button on, and then it can take care of checking all of the values there. So if we go to attribute pool, how does it know when things are done? Is it registers listeners for all these things, and then we notify them in the spin controls. So the pool could, create, character create could set up a listener to be notified when the pool goes to 0. Seems like a bit of a hack, but I think that might work. So let's take a little look at the spin control really quickly. We'll just copy stuff from that. The spin control sets up listeners by having a delegate and defining what the delegate looks like, and then having the delegate declared. I'm just going to copy these two pieces really carefully and say those go into who is going to be doing the notification, which is the attribute pool. So I'll just drop that in here, and this is going to be pool 0 handler, and there's really nothing to do other than the source. I don't need to pass any data along. This will be the pool 0 handler, and that will be just listeners. Okay, and then I just need to have an add and remove listener there. So if I go back to my spin control and see where those are done down here, and I'll just copy a couple of these at random, go back up in the character create and put them down here. I don't need an update method for my for this, so this is going to be add listener, and it will be a pool 0 handler. You seem to have a little trouble figuring what that might be. Are you? Oh, that's because it doesn't belong there. Okay, good clue that we've got something not there. Let's put it down here. This will be add 0. This will be the pool 0 handler, and this would be just listeners, and this would be remove listener, and that will be a pool 0 handler, and then this would be just listeners. Okay, I'm all set. Now it's ready to have a listener, and have somebody register it there. The character create will need to find the attribute pool. So we'll have a private attribute pool that we will have to go and find. Fortunately, it is named attribute pool. Okay, so we double check that is in fact the same type. Yep, the script is attribute pool. It's got a space in it, but I don't think that matters for the name of the class. So I will say pool equals transform dot find deep child attribute pool dot get component attribute pool, and then that should end. Let me check here to say if pool's not equal to null, debug.log found pool in character create. Yeah, just a little sanity check to make sure that that some of the stuff is working the way I'd hoped it to work. Make sure that everybody's been saved. They have not. Attribute pool has not been saved. Save that out and start it. And no compiler errors here. And we see we found the attribute pool. Good, good. That means now that character create has the pool. I won't need this print anymore. And that means then I can register a listener with it. I will need to have a function void on. Whoa! Thank you, Visual Studio, for being an idiot here. I'm trying to type something, and you auto-completed the whole function on me. On pool create 0, and that should take an object source, which I don't care about right now, but I can now say pool dot add listener, and this would be a delegate on. I can actually just say on pool 0, I believe here. I think it will create a delegate for me. Oh, but it won't call up the parameter. Okay, that's the difference. On pool 0, this is the pool that zeroed. And thinking about that for a little bit there. That's not how our spin controls work, did they? Because the pool is the listener here. It adds a listener validate, which is a pool 0 handler. We just have to give it the name of the function. That's right. Never mind. I'm getting a little carried away here. This on pool 0 is the name. Visual Studio, I swear some days. Okay, back up. Whatever you think you're doing. On pool 0. That's what I want you to complete. Okay, I believe this will be fine. That we just need to make sure that when the 0 occurs here, play button interactable. Instead of doing that, I will say if listeners this. Okay, that's how. What is your problem here? To bool. Oh, if listeners is not equal to null, then is that what you want? Okay, I think we're fine there, and that will not change the play button. Now, one problem this is going to have that I can see is that if the text is not there in the name field, there is nothing to notify you when the pool changes again. So we'll have to actually check for both of those things and get notifications on both of those things. Otherwise, so whenever one of these changes, we'll have to check both of them. Oops. That's not going to be hard to do. And this is, first of all, let me just set the in here. So I'll say play button. It's going to be wrong, but interactable equals true. So I could do that. That's not going to check the text, but I'll want to say what is the name text? Did I give it? It just says TextMesh Pro input field. It's not a very good thing here. This is player name. So the script is going to need to go and find that, and let me just rename it from label to name label. Not that I want to access that, but just so I want to know what it is when I'm looking at my hierarchy. All right. So the script here is going to. I'm going to need to get a copy of that button. Private, not the button, the input field, which is a TextMesh Pro field using TM Pro. Sometimes I can get it to complete. And this will be a private TMP input. And come down here, input field, input. And I'll want to go and get that and say input equals transform dot find. I'm addicted to find deep child because then I don't have to worry about where it is. And that's player name. And that would be get component. And that's TMP input field. Go find me one of those. Which is not text, but it has text in it. So I can, so what I might want to check here is, first of all, when I look at that input field, which is player name, notice that I have on and edit down here. I use that already in the spin controls. So I want to hook that up. Note that the text controls here, on in edit adds a listener delegate input handler. So we did something like this. So the character create's going to want to do that as well. Okay, and I'll just even call it input handler. Why not? Void input handler. Okay. And it'll be called when ends there. Now I can check the pool to say if the pool dot, and I think it's value. See, that's a nice thing about making that a public at the top, equals 0. Then I want the player interactable. So I'm going to check it here. I probably should check to see if there's any text in here, and if input.text, and that's a string dot length, maybe. Where is the length? Is greater than 0. How about if it's equal to 0? If it's equal to 0, then we will just return. Okay, if they've typed anything in the field at all, we'll skip that test and then we can turn the button on. Okay, that handles the case if the pool is zeroed and the name is filled in. The next thing we'll want to do here is we'll want to check to see if on pool 0 will always be valid, so I don't need to check it. But once again, I'll say if the text hasn't been changed, then we'll return. But I don't have to check the pool 0 because I know I've been notified of that. So that takes care of both cases, I believe. And we should be able to test that here in the game. I'm going to go ahead and make this maximize on play so we can see what's going on here, because I'm pretty confident that that this is going to work. Silly me, I know, but it actually started, and now I have 8 points to allocate And so I've allocated them all. Play did not go active. Now I take something in here, Fred, hit enter, the play button is now active, and I can hit it. Okay, I'll stop this, and we see the play was clicked. Okay, let's run the other test. The other test is I type text here, and I hit enter, play does not activate. And then I allocate my points, and play does activate. There. Okay, so for those few minutes that we spent on that seemingly ridiculous task, what I've done here is I've made this player create dialog a little bit more robust, so that we're forced to complete not only the point allocation, but creating a name. And we could do the same thing with actually assigning a class here. I haven't actually checked those, but those buttons are going to give us a class. I can do that offline, not in this video. But what we're wanting to do here is when play, what happens when we hit play? Well, we're going to want to create a structure, and we're going to fill it in. In fact, I can make the structure out there so that I don't need to actually create it explicitly. I want to close down TextMesh Pro right there. Go to my script. This will be a regular script out here, and I will create a C# script called player. No, I'm not going to create a C. Well, I'll create a script, right? But it won't be something Unity majors. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of all of this stuff here and that, and it's just a class, C# class. And we did this in class a little bit there. I want to say static player underbar instance equals null. That makes it one reference to a player potentially. I want to make private player. The constructor is private, so we cannot instantiate it. And then I will say public static instance, not combine instance. What are you doing? Instance. Okay. You're really messing with me here. Maybe I should put static up here. Static. No, that should be public static instance. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. I should be able to name a function whatever I want to, Visual Studio. Okay, you cannot. Okay. Modifiers are not out on static constructors. It's not a static constructor. All right, I'm going to need to see what's going on here. Okay, I feel kind of silly here. I didn't tell it what the return type was. That's what Visual Studio was trying to tell me. It was correcting my instance to some existing class that it had. Now it's complaining it doesn't have a return path here. That's all right. What we'll do is we'll want to say if instance is not equal to null, then I want to return instance. So and then if it's not, we'll get out of here. We will just say instance equals new player and return instance. Okay, so now I'm returning code from all code paths. So what this does, the goal is to ensure that exactly one player exists in the game at one point. This is not scene specific. Second of all, this structure will be created on demand on the first access, and you do not need to have a player in order to create that. So that's why we have this static variable that holds the instance, a reference to the player, and we have a static variable that will get the instance for us. The constructor is private, which cannot be called outside of this class, which means you cannot create a new player outside of this class, okay, because the constructor is private and you won't have access to it. All right, so what we've done here now is when we come in, you'll just be able to say player, capital P, dot instance to call this method. And what it'll do is check this static variable here. This is created before any players are created, and it will be initialized to null. There will be exactly one of these in the game. We'll check it to see if it's null. If it's not null, it means we've been called before, and we'll return the instance. But the first time through, it will be null, so we will call the constructor on it. We can do that because while it is private, we are inside the class and so we can access the private variable. So we call it, we've now instantiated the player, and we return the instance to it, and this will be used the next time we call for it. So there can only be one call to the constructor ever, and that will now guarantee we have a unique object that we can access from the namespace without having to pass the pointer around. Since this is not a mono behavior, this is not being managed by a Unity at all, we cannot attach it to anything in the scene. This will exist outside of Unity's managed space. This means that this will survive across scene transitions, which is good because we have one scene that's going to fill this in and another scene that's going to be using it. Many more scenes are going to be using it potentially. This is where we would fill in the information on the player, but and we might fill it in the constructor. But first of all, we should say what type of information might we have on the player. Well, we can look at our dialog box here in the scene view and see that we'll have these attributes in this name. There'll be this class that we'll have to fill in, and notice I'm still not pulling that out. Those information will come right from the user, and then we can fill in other stuff later. But in general, what we will want to have, let me find Visual Studio, the player is going to share a lot of commonality with the enemies in the game. Okay, they too will have names, and they too will have statistics and stuff like that. So, and classes. So what we really want is a superclass above the top of this. Traditionally, this has been called mob for mobile object. Okay, so an object that moves around. The name came from the days of the MUDs and similar text-based games where they would have objects in the game, but some of them would be mobile that would be controlled either by the player or by the AI. That describes our characters and describes the not just the characters but the enemies and all of these things. So I'm going to really create another folder out underneath scripts, not for this, but I'm going to create a folder called mobs, and the player will be one example of this. Other mobs will be the NPCs, but let me create a script in here as soon as Unity gets done with that. And I'll pick another C script that will be called mob. Mob will be the superclass for both the player and the enemies. And it's really going to have what most of the data is. It's going to be there. It too will not be a mono behavior. It will not be a singleton because we can have many mobs in the game, and we probably will. But so it'll be a public class, and we can have. I'll adjust the accesses later on this. I might have a public string name, okay, and let's see, a public int level, public int some indication of health, so we'll call it HP for hit points. Make a note off the side, hit points equals health. Let's see, some level of experience, then that probably goes with level, so I'll just put that up here. While level is a discrete value, public int experience. Now, I don't know if that really makes a whole lot of sense for our mobs, so maybe that won't be put in here for mob. Maybe that's a player only statistic. Okay, but definitely our creatures in the game can have different levels, and they will have different health. Some of our statistics, public int strength, public int dexterity, public int agility, public int stamina, public int intelligence, public int wisdom. Wait a minute. Let me go back and check my stuff here. Strength, dexterity, agility, stamina, intelligence, charisma. I should have wisdom up here, and I don't. Because wisdom was another thing here. But we'll leave that off for right now. And the reason is that wisdom was a wisdom, it was typically used for priests, and intelligence would be used for mages and magicians. So those were two different fields for that. I can go back and adjust that later. In fact, I'll just leave it there, but it won't be filled in by the create dialog right now. There will probably need some value for armor class here, and AC, which will be armor class, which is how tough it is to hit. Okay. Now we will probably want to have some sort of a mob type here down here. So I don't know whether we will want to what that would be. Let me think about that for just a second. I'll leave the type of mob for later. Really, that has to do with like targeting. Public int offense and public int defense. Actually, those were all listed as skills, and I don't know if I listed skills here. Let me clear that out. All those would probably be derived types, so maybe I should just put that down here and say that these are going to be there. But it should have a set of skills. And what these would be, now I don't know that we're going to have all of these in here, but the skills would be public enum skill type, and the skill type would indicate things like possible things as weapon skills for hand to hand, weapon skills for one hand, slash, swords, axes, weapon, two-hand, slash, so these are like big axes, big swords, weapon, one-hand, blunt, maces, clubs, those types of things, weapon, pierce, weapon, archery. These are skills that you might have, and then on top of that, things like combat, offense, and combat defense. That's why I'm wondering about whether I really want to have offense and defense up here, but those could be derived from combinations of these values here as well as the level and stuff like that. So we might collect them and crunch them down as they change. You had individual skills. So what I expect to have then here is some sort of a skill type, and well, I've got the skill type, but how would I declare that? I want to make a dictionary with this, and private dictionary is a way to do a mapping of this. So I'm going to say skill type, and then int, and then skills. And so what that's saying here is that there will be a set of skills identified by these enumerations. They will each have an integer value, and you'll just be able to look it up by skills and then giving the skill type and pull it out of the dictionary. This way we can add more skills to it as we need to, and the dictionary will remain the same. Probably want to have an attack range. Make that float. Attack range, which would depend on the type of the weapon, how big the creature is. You know, obviously ranged weapons, we're going to have longer ranges than a sword, but a big sword with a big creature is going to have a longer range than somebody with a dagger. So we might want to keep that range there. We would need to know the attack type, but we haven't talked about that. Private float, I want to have this idea of weapon speed I'm not going to be able to implement all those here, but I'll put placeholders in here. Weapon speed, how fast can you attack with the weapon? If you have a great big sword, you're not going to be able to swing it very fast. If you have a tiny dagger, you'll be able to make many attacks at once, in a short period of time. So there's always a trade-off between what the damage is on a weapon and its weapon speed. And so we'll let that provides interesting decisions that people can make, and it's easily handled by just creating a variety of weapons to make them available to the player. I'm going to introduce the idea of aggro range here in a second, or later I could say. Aggro range. At what point how far away will mob aggro? This will not apply to the players. Not players. Okay. Because they can aggro whenever they want to. You can decide to attack somebody, but most mobs will have a range that they will not attack beyond. You can think of as line of sight, but you can also link of it, just not interested here. I want to also have a private float de-aggro range, and the idea is how far away before breaking off attack. Some games use leashing, in which case the mob has an invisible leash, if you will, a range between its original spawn point or wherever it was when it aggroed, and if it gets a certain distance from that point without actually engaging its enemy, it'll break off the attack and go back. Okay, and it's an interesting mechanic. I've always liked not having that leashing, so that you can pull a mob away from one place and drag it however far away you want until you can engage it at a safe place. Okay, I think that takes care of most of the stuff that we would want to have for the mob, and therefore the player will be an example of that. I'm going to save this off. We will adjust it as we need to later on. The player, which is not up here, I will bring up player. Here it is. And so we will just say player derives from mob. Okay. And then we can just fill in this structure. Note that while the constructor is private, which it must be, mob has all of these values as public, so we can just fill them in from the dialog box. When the dialog box fills, we will go and find the this. So that would be right here in this play clicked. And so first of all, since we know this is a player, I'm going to want to say player equals player.instance. I'm saving a reference so I don't have to call instance every time. And I'll say player.name equals, and that was going to be input.text. I think that should be fine. The player dot strength is equal to, don't I have a bunch of spin controls? Oh yes, I do. In the attribute pool though, attribute pool has those, but they don't have references to all of them. They just have a bunch of them here. Well, let's let the character go and grab all of those. Let's take a look at the attribute pool, how it defined a spin control. It said spin control and did this. Now it looked for all of the child in the transform. I probably want to store those up here at the top level, because it's going to be difficult for the player to, for the character create to find those. Now I could look in here and see, I do have those spinners there, so I guess we could find those by name. So maybe I'm not worrying about that too much. Private spinner, spin control, and I will get those for str spinner, private spin control, and dex spinner. I am going to have to look all those up by name. AGI spinner. I'll fill in that list later. For right now, what we will do is just say stir spinner equals transform dot find deep child. See how nice it is there. That is going to be stir spinner get the dot get component, and that will be spin control. Okay, and so we will do that, and I can just copy this line and paste one in for Dex and Agility. Those are easily changed from Dex and AGI, and I will need to change their names here, Dex and AGI. Almost ready to finish. I think that takes care of that. So I'm going to do in the rest of this in the video here, but I'm going to do offline here is I will fill in the rest of these spin controls, and we would then here with player.strength is stir spinner dot, and I think I have value here, don't I? Yep, I do. Value. I can just get the current value of the spin control out of this and say player dot dexterity equals dex spinner dot value, and player dot agility equals AGI spinner dot value. Okay, see, I just loaded 3 of the values out of the spin controls, as well as the name. Okay, so we'll have to work on class later, but I can do that right now. So we've gone on for over an hour, so I'm going to let you go here, and we'll pick this up some other time there. But just as a review here, we've done scene transitions. What we haven't done is the scene transition out of here into play. And so what we would do then, we'll save that for next time, but once the player structure has been built up, we will do a scene transition into the main game.